CSS and you started that practicing.
Why hello?
Only if it's a big CSS.
All right, come on. Let's get to OCs. Yeah, you're good. I'm about to make you get up in about a few minutes anyway.
Leo says you're fixing his code.
No, you wrote all of it. That's what I do.
All right. We good? Ready? Okay. So thanks for being patient. I think this is the latest I've ever started one of my meetups in the entire year that I've done it. With that being said, I started this meetup exactly a year ago. Come on now.
You had a few weeks, right?
Huh?
You had to market the first one.
Well, yeah, we had Ruby.
Yeah, it was.
All right, so Mr. Punk in the front over here. Yes, Ruby was the first university meetup I hosted. So it started out with Ruby in September, October was JavaScript, November was Android, and December was iOS. No, backwards, sorry. iOS was November. I'm a little delusional. And JavaScript, or wow, Android was December. Did not realize JavaScript would blow up to be the biggest JavaScript meetup in all of Central Florida. We have over 600 members. Hey. We have over 600 members in this group. And aside from crappy traffic today, we would have had the highest attendance rate that we've ever had. The highest one was when Sergio gave his first talk. Woo! We had 75 people in here. Had no freaking idea I would ever see that many people in this office. It's absolutely retarded. I'll show some of you guys, since you guys didn't see it, but I'll show you too after the talk. I got forced to learn how to do JavaScript in 3 weeks. And built the tool for the reasoning why I don't need the other side of your ticket. I'll show that later. Let's see. I did that in 3 weeks while dealing with my architecture final, which, by the way, my architecture midterm is tomorrow. And I burnt myself yesterday with a soldering iron, so we're doing good. I'm going to smack you. Huh? Probably, but I have to solder more wire tonight. So, yeah. I'm not sleeping tonight, hence the Red Bull. So let's see, what else happened? Oh, yeah. I have a sad announcement for anybody who didn't pay attention to any of the emails that I've given you guys. We are going down to 1 meetup a month. By the way, for the last year, I've had 4 a month.
That sounds good.
Now we're going down to 1.
That doesn't sound good.
I know. It's yeah. So, it's going to be more of a generic. So, all the topics are open. If you want to speak, you let me know. It can be an Android and a JavaScript talk all in one meetup. It can be Windows related. Good God, that'd be horrible, but it could be, it could be a .NET, another slightly not lovable language. It could be more of like IP security, whatever. I've been bugged about that one. So I'm willing to open it up. We'll have 2 speakers for sure, possibly a third depending on if we need to. But I am going to keep it the second Tuesday of every month. Because, well, that is the week I have the highest turnout. Granted, it's because of JavaScript, but it's the highest turnout that I ever have. I'm also going to be merging all my other groups. So you guys in JavaScript are fine. It's for those who aren't in JavaScript that will get the announcement. Because I will be closing down the other meetup pages and then shoving everybody into this one. So University Tech Meetup is going to look really good because it's already at 600 members, let alone the other 1,000 that are in the other 3 groups. About, give or take. Each one had about 300 members in each one. So, yeah. That is happening literally after today. So I will not have another meetup until the second Tuesday in November. So please don't bug me about meetups next week or the week after. It's kind of a sad thing for me. These were my baby. These were my baby for a while. So, you know. But happy news, we have Orlando Tech on Thursday. You guys get to see my beautiful face again. If you go, and you should go. It's an awesome one. Yes, I'm being a smartass. You can go ahead and make a comment.
Super happy after your
Huh?
exam. Super happy after your exam.
Oh, I'll be tired as shit, but yeah, I'll be good. It's not an exam. I have to present a model and have a crit with 3 people and get ripped apart because they're probably going to think my concept is all out of whack thanks to my crazy teacher. Also, too, in November, Orlando Tech is doing a spin-off of Startup Weekend, if you guys have ever heard of it. We are doing our own version of it, so therefore half the money doesn't go back to Startup Weekend. They take half of it, although they don't do a single thing except for using their name and publication for it. So the other half is going to go to different events in Orlando Tech. So that is in November. It's called Weekend Launch. If you guys have heard anything about it, great. You should do it. It's pretty much you kick up a startup over a weekend. And it's the whole process. So it goes over lean, everything. How you kick out an MVP, all of it. So if you guys have awesome ideas, you really need to do this.
Is it the whole same process, like pitch in the beginning
Mhm.
and form teams?
Yep. Very similar process. So it's our spin-off of Startup Weekend, but we're doing it as Orlando Tech. So if you guys want more info on it, come bug me. I have all the info. And also, too, I won't be there because I'll be in Gainesville for a wedding. Orlando Tech Pub Crawl. It's always the Friday after Orlando Tech Meetup. It's a lot of fun. People kick back, have fun, drink. They pop all different bars. We change the locations up all the time in the different districts. Go. You want to meet awesome people? Go. It's a close-knit, no more than like 30, 40 people. And you get to meet a lot of, it's not just, it's good for you engineers because then you're going to meet the more professional people in other companies because we all get together who are in tech, who aren't developers, and we just hang out and bullshit. And sometimes we talk business, sometimes we just talk shit. So, but it's a lot of fun. I haven't gone in a while. So I'm sad, and Dan's yelling at me because I haven't gone in a while. But I'll be there next month. I won't be there this month. So go to that. If you want more info on that one, let me know. There's also a Meetup page for it. You just have to accept it. They don't allow recruiters. So, yeah, Dan hates recruiters. Dan McGaugh, by the way, if nobody knows who he is. He owns a company called Effing Amazing. Yes, it's EFFING. All right, so I'm done rambling because I'm tired. Brad came up to me and wanted to give a talk. Thanks to him, we have all this Strong Loop swag and all sorts of goodies.
I have to put on a little side music because I see you have a Wi-Fi, so I need to see if I can attach Wi-Fi. Let me put on a little music while we take care of this. Okay. I came prepared, just in case. And which one is it? Bottom one? Tech Meetup? Okay. No,
Just random. Oh, I forgot to talk about your goats, David. Let's talk about your goats.
Okay, got it. Anyway, okay, now we can go back to it. Yeah, you never know when you're giving talks. There's always something that comes up. So I throw in that slide just for anything. Usually I throw it in at the end or something like that just to play as interim music or something. But so tonight I was going to talk a little bit about Strong Loop and their product Loopback. I found it several years ago. Well, 2 years ago. Unfortunately, it was very in its infancy at the time. But we'll get to that. And today it's really about developing, deploying, monitoring, and scaling REST APIs with Node. So, and how I got there was, let's see, well, actually, I do have quite a bit in my GitHub repo, a little bit. So I've committed back to Loopback some questions and some suggestions, and I've actually done a couple Ember components as well too. My Twitter handle, my email address, and right now I work for Global Options, which is an insurance fraud investigation company, and I will get to why kind of Node comes into play there. It sounds nothing like why you'd be using Node at a place like that, but anyway, I also have a company, Raptor Tech, that I started recently with a friend of mine who we got into Node and Loopback and Ember and just started taking on contracts in the area to help people out because it seemed Node really wasn't taking hold in the community right away, so we were kind of just trying to help build its popularity in the area. We'll skip that one. Okay. And what are we trying to solve with Node? Well, what I was kind of faced about 2 years ago is at this insurance fraud investigation company, we have this application that company size about 500 people are using to try to be able to enter their insurance claims and be able to say, okay, see if there was insurance fraud on the claim, be able to detect if this is a possible chance for fraud, and then we have investigators that go out into the field, and they would go out and capture video on a subject, or they would take pictures of a subject, take notes about the subject, and they would jot all this information down on a piece of paper, and they would write down, people's social security numbers and all this private information on pieces of papers, and then have to get back home to their house and then enter all this information into their application that they were using, which is called Global Track. And it became one of those things where the investigators were spending more time entering their report at home than they were actually doing investigations in the field. They were spending quite a bit of time. So we were posed with the idea of trying to solve, okay, how do we get those investigators in the field to get mobile? What can we do? And then I got to see Global Track, their application that they were using. It is a Cold Fusion based application, which has some .NET, which has some PHP, which has some Java, which has some, what else?
Kitchen sink.
Yes, kitchen sink. So if you think about it, what we're really trying to solve is how in the world do you maintain a large application that size, an enterprise application, and it's all based on 10 to 12 different languages and different code bases. How do you get people to even maintain said software? And that's where our ideas were, okay, let's get down to everything on the front end is based in JavaScript. Okay, what happens? Let's look into Node, because Node on the back end is in JavaScript. Maybe we can get people so that this way they're fluent on the front end and the back end. And Node.js on the back end is quite a bit different than JavaScript on the front end, but it's one of those things. Once you're familiar with the language and you can do it on the front end, I kind of believe that you can tackle it on the back as well too. So that's what we were really trying to tackle by looking into Node and trying to solve that big application architecture problem. How do we fix a hodgepodge enterprise application? And I'm going to throw this in here. I'm probably going to get some boos from the Rails people, but LinkedIn did a big move a while back from Rails to Node. It's back in like 2012 or 2013, if I remember right. And they quoted that they were saying once they moved to Node versus Rails, they actually had 30 servers, and they cut down to 3. And with those 3 servers, they still had enough headroom to be able to handle 10 times their load with their previous 30 Rails servers. And I don't know if any of you have used GitLab or Open Project or anything based upon Rails on the back end, but I've used them, and we kind of use that in our current company to be able to track projects, because we're not able to host our software on GitHub, so we had to come up with an internal solution. And that's where, when we were putting GitLab on a server, we were actually seeing, just to run GitLab with 10 developers, we were getting we needed 3 gig of RAM to be able to use it, to be able to handle everybody coming in, because it was firing up a big Redis cache to be able to keep up and handle everything. Sidekick was showing all these graphs going oh, is bonkers when you were just using the app in general. So we ended up having to tune the box way more than we needed to. We ended up with 8 gig of RAM in the box just to be able to have a private GitHub repo. And GitLab is actually really cool if you guys get a chance to check it out sometime. It's, if you need it, it's pretty much, it's GitHub in a box for your own enterprise. It's awesome. But here also LinkedIn quoted that once again, their programmers could leverage their JavaScript skills. So this way, instead of having, I need to keep 5 people to work on the front end, and I need to keep this small group over here to work on the back end, and we have a problem, okay, all the problems seem to be on the back end this month. Now we have 5 JavaScript developers just kind of saying, okay, we might want to do some cool features, maybe not, we don't have anything pressing. And then we have 5 Rails guys pulling their hair out saying, I wish we had more help. We got these 5 JavaScript guys over here that can't really help us. So what they were trying to say is now they could pool their groups together and be able to handle bigger tasks with their same group. So that's kind of why we made an architecture decision to go to having JavaScript on the front end and the back end. And here's why Loopback. Loopback is a Node.js framework which gives you all the powers of the event loop. So that this way you have your asynchronous I/O, and that's really what gives you your big benefit. You do have to be very careful about how you code on Node on the back end, just because you can run into lots of problems with, by default, asynchronous behavior. Most of us think synchronously, and then you end up with several problems. But that's then it's Node, or Loopback is also based upon Express.js, and I'll get to why. And the other thing that they have that's actually extremely cool about Loopback is their API Explorer. I don't know if anybody's ever seen Swagger, Swagger.io. It's a really cool site. They have a really awesome Swagger UI that I've tried to integrate into an Express app myself and failed miserably. And then gave it to somebody else to try to work on, and watched as they failed miserably to try to integrate Swagger into their Express app as well too. But Loopback, it comes right along. So I'll show you. Actually, you can have everything up and running with Swagger in probably about 2 minutes. I'll show you. We can create a backend REST API with full authentication live right here. And it has built-in user management. So anytime you want to roll your own API on the backend, one of the first things you're going to be doing after giving access or being able to talk to the backend server, you're going to need to be able to have users. Obviously, people need to do things, and you're going to want to authenticate them. So it comes built in with authentication. Why roll your own? This way you don't have to worry about holes in your security. Theirs is rolled right in. Another advantage of using Loopback, they have built-in ACLs. So what you end up with all your REST endpoints, you can have control down to, and it's user-based controls. So you can say everyone is allowed on this route, or authenticated users are allowed on this route, or super admins are allowed on this route. You can get down to any level of access controls there by saying the way they organize them is they do most specific is the first match, and then you do your least specific as the last match. So this way you kind of catch it. They have an order in the ACLs, but I found that they don't really follow their documentation. But we'll get to that too. The big thing is Loopback is scalable. I've used Loopback for just a small project. I wanted to do a quick demo for Ember on the front end to be able to do Ember Simple Auth. And I said, you know what? I need to be able to do Ember Simple Auth. I need a backend authentication server, something quick. All I had to do was bring up Loopback, create a Loopback instance real quick, and I was already able to authenticate with JWT tokens. So it gives all the power to you for small apps, and then we're using it in an enterprise application right now already as well too, which you can scale via Docker or the process monitor or any deployable tool that they have as well too. And my favorite part of Loopback is obviously their community support. They're huge into their community. They give out shirts. They've sent me boxes of shirts. This is kind of their second box of shirts they've sent me. So I've done one of these talks before, and I was going to do it. I think the first one I was going to give was about a year and a half ago when I first found Loopback, and they actually decided, you know what? we really like that you're going to do this in Orlando. No one has taken on Loopback in Orlando. So we're going to send over their head guy at the time for community support was Jimmy Guerrero. And he said, you know what, I'm going to send over my big guy, Shubrakar. We're going to send him over, and he's going to actually present for you. So that was the best presentation I ever gave, because all I had to do was kind of sit there and watch Shubra come up here and talk. It was awesome. It was the best talk I ever did. So I really appreciate them doing that. But so here's kind of a little background about who they are anyway. So you get an idea of who's behind Loopback. We have several of the Node core contributors that are on here. I've actually communicated back and forth with Miroslav quite a bit. And I've submitted code patches, which he's also commented back, as far as I know, that's not how you do it. So he's very nice. So they continue to say, you know, if you have a patch, just do your best and submit it to them, and they'll work through anything. So Raymond Fang is kind of their lead architect for Loopback and takes care of the majority of the planning for feature sets. But if you can see, they have, and these stats were actually from a while ago. It says July 15th, 2014. They had 420 plus commits to Node version 12, which is crazy. So they committed over 631,000 lines of code to Node. And they've kind of taken on the lead and kind of trying to keep Node going, obviously, because they have their Loopback product, which is built upon Node. And then there's tool that they sell is called Strong Loop, and you don't really need the Strong Loop tool that they have. So I end up using Loopback, all the free tools, and you can actually get their Strong Loop utility to run free just fine. They have a license that allows you to use it for pretty much anything you need. The only time you have to pay for it is really if you're trying to do something large enterprise, and that's kind of where they're after the market anyway. They also maintain Express. So on their Strong Loop GitHub account, they actually do all the Express work. So anytime you see contributions to Express or use anything with Express, you're actually using the code that the Strong Loop guys wrote as well too. And they were also one of the main group that did the fork. So with IO.js, they were kind of the crew that took over and said, hey, we want to keep things rapidly moving. So let's fork Node and go ahead and take over. But I'm glad now that they kind of merged back together, and it looks like it's going to be more stable. I'm excited for it. So I haven't been able to use Node 4 as much recently, just because some of the Node modules that I've been using aren't compatible with Node 4 yet. But I hope the rest of you get to use it. It's actually pretty nice. Okay, and who's using Loopback? This list looked kind of like EdTech and Sapient and Haven when I first looked at Loopback. So I'm like, okay, I don't know any of these people. But we'll give it a try. We'll look at it. And about a year ago, GoDaddy took on Loopback and said, you know what? We're going to adjust all our framework to be based upon Loopback. And that was actually an extremely good article to read about how they were planning on doing it. And shortly thereafter, Symantec showed up. And then I even noticed just recently that the Department of Energy for the US. I wonder what they're doing with it. So what is Loopback? It's kind of an API gateway where instead of having several different spots where your API is set up, where you end up with, okay, I'm going to have a REST service, I'm going to have a SOAP service, I'm going to have something that spits back XML, I'm going to spit back something else over here, I'm going to keep a authentication service off to the side. Why do all that? Because when you're trying to maintain that kind of architecture, once you get to it, in the enterprise industry, it becomes a maintenance nightmare. And your operations guys start looking at you like, what the hell did you design? It's like, we can't maintain this. But their API gateway out of the box gives you an authorization endpoint, gives you token authentication, gives you OAuth 2 support with, like I said, built-in JWT support. And just recently I've been trying with their API metrics and rate limiting. It actually works well. I mean, it's very simple to turn on in their config. Comes built in. The analytics that's one of those features where they have analytics, but I believe once you get past the free demo, that's kind of one of the features that they're trying to charge for. So I wouldn't be surprised now that IBM took over Strong Loop. So recently in the past 2 months, IBM decided to pitch in and say, you know what, they have a really good product. Let's see if we can take it over. And I have a feeling they're going to try to monetize it a little more, but they have this commitment that Loopback itself is always going to stay free in open source. Here's kind of a use case for Netflix. Netflix did something similar a while back where they said, you know what, let's have all these microservices that handle everything, and this microservice handles this transaction, and this one does users, this one does anything with movies over here. And what you ended up with in the top side where it says multiple client APIs is you end up with a client that says, I need this information. Now I need this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this. And you end up with a ton of network latency. All these API calls that are flooding over, making new connections, and you end up with the back end kind of deluged in traffic, being able to handle every request. And then Netflix decided, we want to move towards a single client API call, where it makes a single network call, and then the back end handles the calls and routes them around to other microservices. And that's kind of where Loopback saw, this is where we can step in and kind of model our API gateway off of Netflix's API that they were talking about doing. So that's kind of where Loopback kind of chimed in at that point in time. That's when I noticed they started pitching in and saying, you know what, we're not going to call ourselves just a REST API anymore. We're going to say we're an API gateway. Then later they decided, you know what, we're more than just an API gateway. We're an API engine. That's basically a platform as a service. Because now they have an API Explorer, which we talked about, that's built upon Swagger. They have REST responses. They have ACLs to control their access. Then they have all these API SDKs that are available, all open source that you can use on anything to attach to them. I have not used their push feature that they have, which is similar to like Pusher for several other things for sockets. They have connectors for their file systems. As you can see, I added down in the bottom just recently because they didn't have on this one slide that I found, they didn't have the new connectors for Amazon S3, Azure, and Rackspace. But all these open source connectors are available. And I've used, the MongoDB connector, the SOAP connector, the Microsoft SQL Server connector works real well. Their Postgres connector, I will give fair warning. If you use their Postgres connector, there are some issues right now that if you're trying to do, let's say you want to do a bulk update, you want to send a put with multiple, like an array of objects. You send an array of objects and all of a sudden you get like the first one. So there's a bug in that Postgres connector right now. So that's where I ended up reverting to using the MySQL adapter. But that's where one thing is real nice, I'll get to when I show you how to create database connections. You can actually sit here and say, you know what, I want to keep all these models, but I don't care about my backend or my backend database. Let's say the people I'm working with want to pay for SQL Server. Great, I'll use SQL Server. Tomorrow they decide they can't afford SQL Server. Now all I have to do is update a database connection and I'm using MySQL immediately. I don't have to update any code. It's just changing a database connection. So that's kind of one of the extreme powers of their platform as a service that they're trying to offer. And here's kind of the way they explain their platform as a service, what they're trying to do. They're trying to make it, they use this term, isomorphic API, which, it's okay. They keep using that term for several different things, but really what it comes down to is they have an API gateway that you can connect to that's authenticated via ACLs. Then a router that routes traffic based upon, are you going to be making a connection to your backend models, your database models? Are you going to be connecting to some other file system? Are you be accessing a cache? You can use a Redis cache. You can actually even use RabbitMQ if you want to do something on the back end where you want to do message queuing. They even have that features. Logging, and the performance console and the analytics console that they have off to the side, those I believe is where they're going to start monetizing. So that's kind of built more towards enterprise architecture. So they're kind of definitely swoop in and monetize that, I believe, once IBM gets a hold of it a little bit more. But this is kind of a hold of an idea of their microservice ESB that they're trying to create and give pretty much large-scale enterprises their solution all in one box. And that's where now we start talking about all these microservices. If you've ever had a whole bunch of microservices and you tried to maintain them or deploy them or manage them or update them, that's where things just balloon out of control. So it's just a pain. And that's why they pitch in and say, you know what, we also have a solution to deploy things as well too. So in their tool, in their StrongArc utility, or their little application that they have, they actually allow you to provision and deploy your application. You can create groups, routes, and states and schedule your services to deploy. And they use PM to do that and keep track of, well, not PM to deploy it, but PM to keep track of your service once it's deployed. And that's where everything's rolled into these little containers that they give you. Their whole instance is really set up with a load balancer, and it just works great. As far as anything you're trying to set up, I've created other rollouts or other deployments for big applications, and I'll get to it afterwards, after the slides. I'll show you how easy it is. It's just pretty much point, click, and go. And then the big one that I was talking about, the Strong Loop API Explorer. This is, if you haven't seen Swagger, this is what Swagger looks like. It's kind of a self-documenting feature for your code. So what you end up with is, I don't know how many people like writing documentation. Anybody? Yeah, there's a couple. I was holding my hand up as an example. I definitely don't like writing documentation, but what Swagger gives you in the API Explorer is I can write code to document itself. So I actually don't have to write any documentation. Awesome. It makes me happy. Okay, so now I'm at the point. No more slides. Show me some stuff. Okay. This is where I have just kind of example. I left this up. I'm not sure if you can see that here, but in this model file that I was trying to show is here in this area, gives a quick example of you're coding via JSON for the models. So you don't actually have to write JavaScript code even for some of this. So you can take anybody who knows how to write JSON can actually write code now, sort of. But what you're defining is this ACL list. I can say I want to deny everyone, and that's going to be, it's at the top. I like to write my rules a little bit different, but this is an example. So I just grabbed this example to show, but usually I put the most specific at the top and kind of go down and put the least specific at the bottom, because that's actually the way it's going to match. But as you can see, you can kind of create an access type read, so everyone can read it, and then only people who are authenticated can execute, and then only the owner of the object can write to it. So it kind of gives you an idea of what you can do to define routes, or define ACLs, sorry. And let's see, here's another model, this coffee shop model, which has two fields in it. It has your name and your city. And then they also have a way to write relationships between models. So you can say, this coffee shop has many reviews. This coffee shop also has many reviewers. And where this all comes into play, defining your models out this way, it actually, in this JSON format, it's going to generate your documentation for you as well too. And you'll see that. This right there, that code, is now documentation. I'll show you in a second. It's pretty slick. And this is what an override looks like. This is when you want to go beyond the JSON. This is when you want to do a deep dive in and say, you know what, Strong Loop, you had the right idea for the way you were defining out this coffee shop model, but I really want to write something custom. So you can get in and write your own JavaScript functions as well too. Same thing, module exports, and you're creating my function that's going to handle the route. Let's see, they have this function for the status. Then the next thing I want to do is to be able to handle that status, I want to expose it to the end user. And that's where you write this remote method. And this remote method, what it's doing is, this is actually exposing that function and doing your documentation for you, all in one shot.
I noticed you were doing like your types, and you were doing like required. Is there something else you could do for like validation and constraint things?
There actually is validation you can put in here. This example just doesn't have it. I kind of left it off for simplicities, but you can put in field validations for input. So when you're creating remote methods for posting, you absolutely want to do validation. So you define that all in here as well too. And as long as you follow the syntax to use the remote method and you put your validation in that format, it will be documented as well too via Swagger. So you kind of get all that for free. Okay, enough of that code. Get to actually what it looks like. Okay, what I did, I don't know if you can see this top link up there or not, but what they have is on the local host, I'm running it, I'm serving it on port 3001, and then if I want to see the Explorer, this is the API Explorer, the Swagger self-documented APIs. And what this gives you is, let's say I want to do the development in the back end, and I don't have time to wait for the front end developer to kind of work, or we want to work in pairs where I can go off and do my work, and then he can do his front end development at the same time, and kind of look at this API and see what's available, and not have to depend on whether it's complete or not yet. So what you do is you just go to the local host, since I'm serving it there on port 3001, and do Class Explorer, and it takes you to this API Explorer. I want to say, okay, these are the models that are available. Here's users, reviews, reviewers, and coffee shop. Under coffee shops, these are all my remote methods that are available. You have your model methods at the top that get created. These in this area. That got created just by you creating the model in that JSON file and saying which pieces you needed. And then this right here is from the relationship that says the coffee shop has reviewers, has many reviewers, and has many reviews itself. So those all get created. And then that one quick little extra custom route that we added, the status route, also gets shown here as well too. So we can expand one of these, and this is kind of like Postman. Kind of like using Postman. Instead of having to go to Postman or using curl, you can just do it straight from this Explorer. I want to run this route, and let's say I want to get my response back in XML, I can. I want to get my response back in JSON, I can. I just say how I want my response, click try it out, and there you go. It gives you your response, what you would get. This is what your client would see if he called that route. Then, if you're really interested, you can always grab this request URL and say, you know what, I want to really test it. I'm going to run Postman. And say, I'm going to put that exact route in here and run that route. It's like, hey, it returns the exact same thing. So you know it does the exact same thing as this little API Explorer. And it gives you everything you need for the response header if you want to debug anything. And let's say you want to be able to track your data. How many coffee shops do I have? I can look at this real quick. Oh, actually, be faster to look at the count. I can say try it out. I can't click. Maybe I can't. Okay, bad example. This is the problem with live demos. And there's my response. I think the way the backend actually works as well too, if there is a problem, process manager detects it And the way I have it configured right now, it's running 4 threads, or not 4 threads, but 4 instances of my application. And what it's doing is, behind the scenes, Strong Loop has this utility that keeps track of, okay, you created 4 threads, or 4 instances. These 4 instances are running. You update your code. So the first thing it does, it says, you have four instances, I'll update 2. Let me see if those 2 work. If those 2 crash, it does not update the other 2. So it actually load balances and says, I'm going to only use the other 2. So keep serving the instances. So what you ended up with that delay is usually what happens is I probably made a code change mangling things a while back, so that this way I'm only running off the 2 instances that are correctly running. So that's another feature they have. I won't get into a deep dive on that, but Shubra is a really good guy for a deep dive on their monitoring that they have. Let's see. But you can also, and this is kind of their back end, and for the Angular people in the house, I picked this example because it has a Angular front end example. So it's, once again, it's running on the same port, just it's going to, anytime I hit the root route, it's going to throw up the client page that would appear. And then I can say, I want to log in and see what I can do with the login. I log in, and now I can pick my shop. And as you can see, the API is actually extremely responsive, even though only 2 out of 4 are running. I can kind of see over here on the side, but pick something, hit test, say add review. And my review is up and live for anybody else to see. That's kind of just an idea of the way their framework works. And their tool to actually be able to edit things that I was showing before, you would type slc arc. And what this is going to give me, it fires up their kind of GUI tool. So those who aren't accustomed to doing command line edits to be able to create projects, you can come here and say, you know what, I want to compose a new API, or I need a new model. So I can go straight to the model, and as you can see over here, it might be hard to see, but I have 3 connectors right now. A internal database, this is kind of a memory database. I have a Mongo database and a MySQL database. And I can actually create these models on any of those databases and point to any of them. So I can be pointing to 3, 4, 12 different databases, all with one API server. So I don't have to actually sit there and have different instances of my app running for each one. But I can look at this one and see, okay, my coffee shop has 2 properties. I want to add a new property. Pick one and I say food store, something like that. And that's a string, or maybe I want to change it to something else. And I want to mark it required if they update. And foot store is what it said the field's going to be. Once again, live demo, autocorrect. Nice.
I like foot sore.
So
I don't want that coffee.
this is probably not Starbucks. This is a different coffee store. Or maybe it is Starbucks.
Don't knock until you try it.
but obviously they did not turn off autocorrect on this field, as I would suggest doing. But so their products still have bugs like anybody else. So it's open source, so you can't really complain unless you want to go fix it yourself. So I've tried those as well too. So I've complained and fixed it, and yeah, I can complain at my solution as well too. But once again, you can just quickly add whatever property you want, and maybe it'll spell check me again, maybe it won't. But you can pick types and create the model and save right away, and you end up with. I did all my editing. As you can see, I didn't even have to code. So those who you have on your team who aren't extremely strong coders as well too, this tool works awesome as well. And then for those who do like more coding, you have your tool. There you go. You gotta go. Okay.
You can show them this really quickly.
Yeah, okay. I'm good. You can use their command line tool to actually do any editing. I don't know if you can see it, but it says enter the model name, and you can type your model name in and edit and do add models and do anything from the command line as well too. But that's where I think Schubert's presentations usually go like an hour. So I tried to cut it down. So I can leave it off with the rest. But there's build and deploy. I'll show you real quick. I just take my app, and all I have to do is say I have a process manager running on my local host. I can pick 4 processes to start and say deploy, and now I'm done. Now I actually deployed my code changes live. That was it. Then you have your metrics, which you can load and keep track of everything. My license expired, so I can't show you metrics. But here's the process monitor to show that I do have one running, and I can actually create multiple, and that's kind of your load balancer to keep track of everything as well too. Let's see, anything else? Their profiler. This is where I can actually do things with the API and profile and keep track of everything. Schubert also does a very awesome heat map demonstration, how to profile things. My license is also expired on this, so I can't show you that. But that's really kind of Loopback in a nutshell. There's so many more features, like you can't really dive into it in a very short presentation. But I hope you enjoyed what I could show. So that's Loopback in a nutshell. If you enjoyed it, and watch out for the foot sore.
It's a foot store, coffee store.
Because otherwise I can just keep talking.
Oh, I
A
know.
lot
I
to
always
talk
feel
about.
bad. I'm like,
No, I'm good. No, I appreciate it. I told Sergio to hit me with a drone or something.
So speaking of which, Sergio,
That's my name.
ready? Please tell me Austin didn't bribe you.
For what?
Hitting me with a drone.
No. Well, that might happen, but not on purpose. So I've tried like this demo presentation about 5 times. Well, maybe like 500, and every single one of them failed. So I hope y'all are ready for this. Also, did you guys sign the waiver as you're walking in? Yeah, so just a heads up, CloudSpace is not responsible for any damages that might happen to your heads or whatever with the drone. So if you're afraid or planning on suing Caitlin or something, please step out. Like, this is not the presentation for you. I'm just giving you, I'm just being honest. Let me get set up here real quick.
Yeah, please don't sue me, guys. This is the second time we've had a drone demoed in my office.
How was the first one?
The
I
first
wasn't
one
here
was
for that.
Ruby. That one was actually pretty good.
No-
That's
Yeah,
not
wheels,
good.
so it was
No,
all
no
set.
accidents or anything?
No.
Oh man.
It was itty bitty. Yours is actually yours is a little piece of damage.
Whoa, it was smaller than this?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So,
It was tiny.
This thing is always much
You got it from like China or something like that.
so the original drone I was going to demo was like this big, right? And it broke last night. There was a bug in my app, and it just took off, went all the way up to the ceiling, hit the ceiling fan, and it just like went everywhere. There's a picture of it in my talk. You guys will enjoy it, but yeah, let me get things set up here real quick. So yeah, last night I was up until like 4 in the morning, rewriting my whole app to work with this drone because the other one broke. So anyway, are we connected? Yes, we are. Yeah, so I'm not gonna give you too much information yet. Whatever. So yeah, so we are using React to fly a drone today. Are you guys excited? You guys? Yeah. All right, let's do this.
Go figure it's like week after we do our hack day.
I know, right?
We did 8 other hack day. No, it's
A framework a week. We'll have an Ember something going on next week.
oh God, don't kill me right now.
So this guy used React to fly a drone, and you won't believe what happened next. All right, so just a little disclaimer before we move on. There's a little bit of overreacting ahead. Yeah, React's not really well suited to flying drones, so not really the right solution for for what we're trying to solve here. But yeah, so there's one way to fly drones using JavaScript, and it's this library right here. This is kind of how it all started. All you have to do is do npm install Brolin Spider, and that will basically, in a nutshell, make your drone fly using Node.js. Not sure how many of you have already ran something similar to that. It's quite simple, actually. And in their API, they expose like all the methods, like if you want to turn, if you want to, have it land, take off, or whatever. It's quite simple, but I wanted to go a bit further. I figured, you know what? This is kind of cool, but how can we bring it all the way up to, the back end? See, because the thing about Node is like, you need to take input somehow, right? Like, you could probably basically write a procedure so that it'll take off, whatever, do a little something for like 5 seconds, and then land again. But how, that's really, you're not doing a whole lot. So yeah, I just wanted to basically push the barriers a little bit. So this is what the code looks like for that. When we're using that module, it's literally, like about 5 lines of code, right? So you connect to it, you wait for the setup to happen, and then you just call takeoff, and it'll literally take off. That's it for the flying part. So yeah, the 5 lines that will literally make your drone take off. Then Socket.io came into the picture, right? Why did Socket.io come into the picture? Well, because here's the deal. Socket.io brings browsers and backends together, right? So it keeps the connection connection open. So you can keep sending, new procedures to it, or new commands to it or whatever. So I figured, you know what? We could just keep a connection open, have Node keep talking to the drone, and then we'll have some front end send requests to it, right? So this is the code for it right here, and I'll explain a little bit of what it does. So the first one up top, socket.on. This is basically the browser. So this is Node code, okay? This is on the back end. The browser will send, it's the same emit code right here. It'll send a takeoff. We can call it signal, we can call it, but we're basically, just pinging the back end. Hey, do a takeoff. Now we're using Socket.io. Up to this point, there's nothing special happening. But then, since we are within Node and we still have access to the drone, now we can make the drone take off. So then Socket.io can tell the drone, yo, man, go ahead and take off. And then once the drone is done taking off, that's why we have the little callback function. Everything in JavaScript is asynchronous, or at least everything good, right? The drone will be like, yo, I'm hovering. This worked out. Tell your boss that this all worked. So does this make sense so far? Yeah? Quite simple, right? So now React comes into the picture. Like the same React here that's on my shirt. So obviously React. So does everybody know what React is? Do I need to explain?
Is it good?
What do you guys think? There's been plenty of hype about it, right? Y'all heard it was good? Do you guys want me to do a quick rundown on what React is? Do I need to? Yes? No? Show of hands? No? Okay, cool. So what React is... No, I'm kidding. But obviously, React is the view in the browser. Obviously, that can take some user input, so the user will be able to interact with React, but guess what? React can also talk to Socket.io. Do you guys, is it coming together yet in your guys' head? So, a very simplistic component in React right here. We're basically just defining a little A tag, or anchor tag, whatever you want to call it. It has a little text to it. It's called takeoff, so that the user knows to click that. Now on click, we have a little on-click listener right here. We're calling the takeoff function, which is defined right over here. Now this is happening within the browser. This is React code. Over here, if you've done any jQuery, anything related to events in JavaScript, you'll know that prevent default will keep the page from actually reloading. And now we're telling Socket.io to takeoff. Remember the code we just saw? Yeah, this is what's causing it right here. So now, every time the user clicks takeoff, React will notify socket IO to make the drone take off. Pretty simple, right? Does this make sense? Is this React code confusing to anybody here? Cool? Yeah, pretty simple. So again, just recapping the flow. User asks React to fly the drone. React asks socket IO to fly the drone. Socket IO asks the drone to fly the drone. The drone doesn't really have anybody to ask, so it just flies. What could possibly go wrong, right? So, again, I told you guys, I made the drone take off yesterday, and it did, let me tell you. Now, you think this thing's big. That thing is like the size of this desk right here, okay? Imagine the noise. I was shelling these guys. I know. But you know what? The fan was actually running when it happened, so it was a lot worse. At least this one's not. I was shelling the guys back there. I actually have a little 10-pound dog. Oh my goodness, that little thing was freaking out. And I mean, like before it actually broke, I was able to run it like 15 times or so. And every time it did, it was completely out of control because my app was still broken and full of bugs. And somehow it would find a way to keep chasing my dog. Oh my goodness, I felt so bad for it. It was horrible. She was freaking out. Like anytime she heard and it was loud, she was like, she started running around the house like crazy. I felt so bad for her. Anyway, but yeah, my actual drone was gone, so I needed a new one. And fortunately, I had a backup drone. This little guy right here. Actually, as of 10 p.m. last night, I didn't even know that this thing had an open API. My drone was broken. I had to come up with something for this talk. I couldn't leave you guys hanging. Everybody was all hyped up about flying a drone with React. We made it happen, guys. We made it happen. It's still hanging there at home. Yeah, I'm probably gonna leave it there forever. Just kidding. Now, yeah, I had a quick chat with the CloudSpace's CTO before, and he said that if my he said if he said if this demo doesn't work, it's gonna cancel all the meetups. You think it's bad enough with once a month? Think about no meetups. So we can do this, guys. We're in this together, all right? If you are the CloudSpace's CTO, I love you. Kaylin didn't tell me to say this or anything. All right, so we have a takeoff button right here. You guys ready? I would prefer if you guys protected your heads and stuff. I said every time I click this button, something goes bad. So come on, little guy. There we go. A little bit of help. Cool. Oh my goodness, it worked! It's like the first time! I didn't see that. Wow! You guys don't understand how...
What is the emergency?
So, emergency... So, when your fan, or when your drone gets stuck in the fan, you hit the emergency button. No, seriously. Emergency is just a little method that the API exposes to shut everything off right away. Okay? I'm going to try this one more time. There we go. Oh my gosh. I told you. This thing's so unpredictable. Woo! We made it. All right. So now my... I wish I could take the credit for this brilliant slide, but this is all due to David K. Thank you, man. We love you. Oh yeah, there's another thing, right? So since it's all written in JavaScript, it can easily connect to the cloud if you fly it enough. If you fly it high enough. This is the full app. You guys ready for this?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm actually freaking out a little bit.
There you go.
Fly, little guy. Stop it!
Controlling it all?
Yeah, I'm controlling it with my keyboard keys because it's easier that way. But we could also stop. Look at that! Oh, these guys love ceiling fans. I don't know why. Come back over here. There you go. Oh snap! Yeah, so I was controlling it with my keyboard, but then I also exposed some buttons, but it's kind of harder that way. With the keyboards, like I actually set it up so that, when you press shift and you go to the right, it actually moves to the right, but then if you don't, it actually rotates. It's quite fancy. If you guys feel like seeing some code I could show you, actually, let's do that right now real quick.
All the keyboard handling, you made it with React as well?
I did, but it wasn't so much React as it was native JavaScript. So, are you guys familiar with React a little bit, everyone here? Do you guys know what component will mount does? The lifecycle method? Nobody knows? All right, so basically, React offers some, I'm loving this. I'm teaching don't tell anybody, but I'm teaching a React course at Code School. I'm preparing it right now. And the last slides I wrote was about lifecycle events. So let's see if I actually know what I'm talking about. All right, so shh, don't tell Greg I said this, all right? I don't think he actually cares. But anyway, so component dip mount. Component dip mount gets called right before the React starts actually rendering your component. So, did I say, yeah, so component dip mount, it's actually right after it rendered, my bad. I thought it was component will mount. But yeah, so React said, listen, I'm done rendering this component. If you need a DOM element or anything, it's ready. It's done rendering, it's all good. This is so that's the kind of code that goes in here. So this is like where I connect. It's a lot of ugly code, a lot of console logs. This is 4 a.m. code, so please don't mind. But yeah, so as soon as it's all done rendering, I'm basically doing a document.add event listener. So this has nothing to do with React right here. This is just, vanilla JavaScript. And then it's basically going to this little function right here. So then it's a big, ugly switch statement. If it's the arrow down key, but then if the shift key is pressed and it's going backwards, otherwise it's going down. So that's basically how the keyboard bindings works. And again, it's calling, the actual methods that, that actually, I don't know how to do this. That actually makes the thingamajig happen. There we go. So the thingamajig happen by calling socket.emit move. Now we kind of saw in the mini demo what that does. It just talks through the backend real quick. So if I was to show you that code, we're listening to those guys right over here. So hey, on move, let's call the drone.move method, and when it's done moving, let's just do a little console log because I actually want to see that we received in the so on our terminal, I actually want to know that you're done moving and that nothing went wrong, right? So yeah, that's basically it. It's really simple. We're just interfacing with a little API, just calling a couple of methods, and yeah, I kind of basically turned it into a promise because it's going to become a huge, callback of hell. Is that what we call it? I don't even know anymore. But that thing, yeah. So I just turned it into promises just to make it a little easier. But yeah, that's it. That's literally all we do. So that's the end of my demo. So I have a quick question for you all before we close. What did we just build? Somebody? A volunteer?
Internet of Things.
Sorry, what?
Internet of Things.
The Internet of Things. Okay.
All of it.
All of it. No, but seriously, what did we build? An app? Huh? Oh yeah, drone delivery. Well, that's what we're going to build. This is just like a mini prototype before we get to that. Goat deliveries, yeah. So, no, the reason why I put this here is because, we get so hyped up about technologies, and let me tell you, we built an app that flies drones. That's it. The back-end stack that we use for this does not matter. It could have been done in Java. It could have been done in C. It would have been a lot harder. It would have been a lot harder than for the browser to talk to it. But again, it doesn't matter. The bottom line is there's a drone flying, right? So, and the same could be said for the front end. Like, yeah, React's pretty cool and it makes things a little simpler. But you guys saw, like, for example, the key bindings thing. That was just vanilla JavaScript calling some methods. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. The same could have been done with jQuery. The same could have been done with vanilla JavaScript. I tried using Angular, and yeah, it got stuck in the ceiling, but it doesn't matter. No, but seriously. But seriously, it's about flying the drone.
The drone API supports different languages such as Ruby or such as...
So the actual API is written in C. So that's just like a little port from JavaScript to C. That's completely beyond, the scope of this talk, and also as far as like my knowledge knows, like I have no idea how it actually works on the underlying. But that's the cool thing. I don't need to know. I know how to talk to an API in JavaScript. That's it. That's what we're building. So again, just to reinforce this, guys, React helps. It has a lot of nice features, but it's not the thing. So often I hear people making that the thing, or Ember the thing, or Angular the thing, or put your JavaScript framework here the thing. No, guys, we're building products, and that's what matters. It's all about the bottom line. If your product is not performing, if you're not selling, you're going to be out of a job. That's the truth. I've been through that a few times. Love startups, been through a few that just... You guys know of one that that just happened recently. Fortunately, I was out of there before. But anyway. Now, we could blame the Angular app that we built for it, but it wasn't about Angular. It was about the product. Focus on that. Second thing I wanted to touch on is value the community, right? Why? Everything we built here, like, it's I feel bad saying this, but like it's almost as if I didn't build anything. Why am I saying this? There was already a module available to basically port, JavaScript to C so it would actually interface with the drone. Actually, this thing works via Bluetooth. I have no idea how to connect JavaScript to Bluetooth, okay? But somebody did it for me. I don't have to worry about it. Somebody took the time to make each little piece work. Somebody wrote Socket.io for us and made it available for free, open sourced it. Why would somebody do that, right? Because they value community. Same is said for React. The guys at Facebook, they thought they were building something really cool. They figured they'd make it open to the public. It's kind of blowing up right now, but let me tell you something. They're human beings just like us. Want to know an example of that? I was at a conference, a React conference a couple of months ago, and I approached this guy, Christopher Shadow. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with who he is. He's the one that makes major announcements about React Native and stuff. He has been like the face of React for Facebook. So he's pretty popular, to say the least. I approached this guy and I go, dude, I know a bunch of people are probably asking you this, but can I have a React t-shirt? He goes, oh man, I don't have one, but let me take your address and I'll send you one. I was like, that's cool. Let me take yours and I'll send you some Code Scoot swag. What am I trying to say? Dude was a human being like everybody else. He wasn't like no celebrity status or anything. It was just some cool kids who were quite smart that made something really cool and made it available. So, let's be grateful to those guys. And most importantly, let's get into a mindset of giving back. All of us, if you type any code, any type of code for a living, I don't care if you've been programming for a week or 10 or 15 or 20 years, you've done something pretty cool. Give back, give it back, throw it on your GitHub, show people what you're doing. You know what I mean? Oh, so, I remember, like, I used to be very shy about my code. Yo, you saw my code, it sucks. But it flies a drone. Does your pretty code fly a drone? Do you see what I'm saying here, guys? Like, community, give back, open pull requests. What's the worst that can happen? No. You know what happens then? You open a new one. I mean, seriously. And since we're talking about community, I just wanted to emphasize University.js 1 year. Do me a favor. High five the person next to you. Real quick. Thank you. Thank you. You guys make this possible. Caitlin makes this possible. Thank you, Caitlin, for organizing this. Like, you have no idea how, appreciative we are of this. Like, seriously, but it's so cool. Thank you, CloudSpace, for donating the space, beer, or, whatever it is that it takes to bring a bunch of, cool developers like all of us are together. But seriously, if none of you guys showed up, do you think this would be happening right now? It wouldn't have. Community, man, it goes a long way. Thank you all for being so cool. You all deserve a round of applause. Thank you. If you Google goat high five, this is what will come up, by the way. Thank you, guys. That's the end of my talk. This is just the beginning.
Now for something completely different. Hi, I'm Jeremy. I organized the Orlando PHP group, and last week I did a talk at my meetup called Let's Talk About Money for Developers. I'm not going to do any of that. We're going to skip ahead. Because what I said that I was going to do, holy crap. Where is this?
How long was your talk, dude?
Oh, there it is. This is what I said I was going to talk about tonight. Because as part of my talk, I did a bit called How to Be Awesome. And Sergio's pretty freaking awesome.
Thank you.
But there's someone else here that we all know and love that I also think is pretty awesome. And how do I get to that from where we are?
Sorry.
Ah, there you go. So I got together with a bunch of people from the community to do something very special for Caitlin.
Oh, God,
because
no.
because
No.
we love you, and I wanted all of us to show you that because you deserve it. So, do we get good audio? Do we get good audio?
Can I even plug it in?
Yeah.
There's audio down here.
Yeah. Let me get some speakers.
I hate you guys.
Oh, you're gonna. It's too bad. It's too
You don't know the
bad.
half of it.
You don't know the half of it.
Oh, it sounds like your Orlando spiel. You don't know the half of it. Oh, God. You guys are evil.
All right.
I promise there's
plug
2
this
after
in?
beer after this if you guys can hang out.
But it's just for the USB?
By
Yeah.
the way, I'm not sleeping tonight because I have my midterm tomorrow. So I'm totally sticking around for 2 rounds of beer.
Yeah.
You guys are gonna make me.
By the way, I'm the gatekeeper for beer tonight, so you have to love me. All right. More volume. Can these turn up at all, or do I just have to do it from here?
They're turning up this way.
It's all the way up.
It's all the way up?
We can put side music on when we set it up.
Okay.
I'm scared to see what Jose's gonna say.
This thing on? Supposed to do a quick thank you to Caitlin. Was it happy birthday? Something? Ah, Thank you, Caitlin, for all the meetups you've done. They've been great. Thanks for all the beer. I learned barely anything. I appreciate it, and the community appreciates it too.
Caitlin, I could think of about 1,000 different things you could be doing right now, and instead you're hanging out with a bunch of developers in Orlando. Like right now, that's probably happening, and I could probably say that about every night of the week. So thank you, thank you, thank you for all that you do for us.
Astronaut David K. here, Soul 365 aboard the mission University JavaScript at Cloud Space. I want to thank you, Caitlin, for these amazing meetups that you organized. You're the best. But now that the university meetups have aborted mission, I'm sort of stranded here now. So I prepared a few choice words for whoever decided to cancel the meetups.
Hey, beautiful girl, you. Hey, congrats on 1 year. And from myself and so many in the community, thank you. You do such hard work, and you're so giving of yourself and your time. And you just truly help to make this community in Orlando awesome. So thank you.
Hello everybody, and thank you for being part of University.js and for being here tonight celebrating 1 year of this meetup. I also want to thank Caitlin for giving up multiple Tuesdays of her life to organize this and the other meetups and to make sure that everybody always has a great time. And I'm really sad I cannot be with you tonight, but I'm pretty sure I'll see you soon. So thanks again everybody, and thanks Caitlin. See you.
Hey Caitlin, it's Jimmy at Sonobi. If there were an award for filling developers with pizza, you would win it. Thanks for all you've done for the community.
Hey everybody, tonight we celebrate 1 year of University.js. So thank you all for showing your support. And I also would like to give a huge thanks to Caitlin for what she has been doing for our community. You guys are awesome.
What's up everybody? Hey, I just want because of you that we're being able to celebrate 1 year of University.js. And obviously, Caitlin, you're the best. Thank you so much for everything that you do. So exciting. This is great. Congratulations to all of us. JavaScript!
You've done such an amazing job of bringing together the community. And I know that we are so grateful for the humor that you have brought to this and just having people come together at Cloud Space, bringing in new people, exposing everyone to the community. You've done an awesome job, and we're very grateful. And Ben and Brian also appreciate
Hey Caitlin, you're awesome. Thank you so much for being a rock star in Orlando's community. We love you. We couldn't do this without you.
So that's it.
Thank you. I'm fighting back tears so bad right now. All right, so with that being said, holy shit. All right. That was, no, I don't like you. You're never giving a lightning talk ever again. All right, so let's get back on track so I can get this going. Yeah, so about that. Okay, I'm stopping streaming.